on reflecting, I realized that, seeing clients and the endless meetings and the community that we have, and you realize that we as as humans, born into these kind of fabricated, morally driven, religiously, ethically underpinned societies, which have value in so many ways, but as soon as you enter the spiritual journey and start to unpack yourself and see with clearer eyes, you start seeing that we're actually either unconsciously, it has to be unconsciously really, trained to keep moving away from ourselves. We're not trained to face ourselves. We're not trained to know ourselves. We're not, that's not really part of the culture. It's not part of the intelligence of the culture. I mean, to me, an intelligent culture, a more enlightened, aware, self-aware culture, one of the things that we would do kind of automatically and naturally would be to instill in children the capacity for self-referencing, for self-awareness, to look at ourselves, to know ourselves, even to the point of having, meditation or wisdom classes early in life. And it's just not there, right? I mean, certain free schools, I think, certain independent thinkers, and maybe with homeschooling, but as the cultural, paradigm, all we know is avoidance. All we know is moving away from ourselves. This is no wonder there's this insanity. No wonder the mental hospitals are full. No wonder, the medication level of people with psychological, emotional, mental, existential issues is so high. Because if you build a society, to only have beliefs, but those beliefs don't actually have any self-referencing or self-awareness, then not everybody is going to be able to hold rigidly to beliefs that are installed in them by religion or society or teachers or, values, or, because there are too many people who slip through the net, who slip through the gap, the gap of dysfunctionality, the gap of, having bad parenting or negative parenting or dysfunctional parenting, which is more common than one even dare think about, because everybody's so messed up, ancestrally. Well, no, there's no portion of blame there. It's just like when you really see it, you see that we're all, caught in a sort of ancestral karmic wheel, that goes on. And so there's no breakage in that. There's no intervention in that. There's no wisdom in that. These are not wisdom cultures. They're functional cultures in so many ways. They're maybe mechanical cultures, or there's one foot in the modern world and one foot still in the primitive world. One foot in one yuga, one foot in another yuga. So there is a self-referencing on a certain level, but it's the what can the self get for itself? What can I be? How can I, make my own life better? How can I achieve more? How can I get more power? How can I build a better nest? How can I protect myself better? How can I procreate more? Driven by lust or greed or, any of these things. And that's just the kind of evolution in a way that we're going through. But that's self-referencing. It's not self-actualizing. And so we have one foot sort of as a paradigm in the self-referencing. The self is very strong. Yeah, the self and the tribe, of course, is very strong in so many ways. Even if it's the victim self, it's very strong. But there's still a foot back in the past, which is the tribal foot, the primal, basic sort of my tribe versus your tribe. God outside, somewhere in the sky. My God is better than your God. And so these two aspects of us, the tribal, let's say, or the primal, or the old school, and this self-referencing style, guide us. But none of that is actually self-actualizing. None of it is developing the capacity to go within ourselves, from an early age, and to keep clearing our baggage, because if you keep clearing it, you don't have any. If it's only the avoidance of it that builds it up over years. That's you and I. It's most people that I work with, and most people we know in so many ways, suffer so much because it's the accumulation of baggage neglected for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And it's just built up this sort of, huge swathe of stuff over such a long period of time. Because because the training has never been there to actually self-actualize and self-realize, to know oneself. It's not a wisdom culture, like I say. And so there, by and by, we start on the spiritual path. And the spiritual path at first seems to be reaching for something, doing things, trying to get somewhere, trying to attain enlightenment, trying to find peace, trying to discover, a certain grace or equanimity, or through prayer, or through practice, or through yoga, or through, going to ashrams, or all of these things, which are all noble in their way. But by and by, life in its intelligence starts to point us inwards on the spiritual path. And so, eventually after 1, 2, or 10, or 20, 30 years, we come face to face with ourselves. No more searching out there, because that's been done. So that old mechanism has to come to an end. That's the end of seeking. That's the end of searching. Pointing us back to ourselves, this self-referencing, self-actualizing. Know thyself. And that opens the door to everything that we've carried around for 50 years. Simply, in many ways, because we're the victims of a cultural paradigm that doesn't value wisdom from an early age. So then we have to do this stuff for ourselves. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to know the wisdom and discover the wisdom and unravel 50 years of crap for ourselves. And that's a big task for many people, because it's accumulated, it's densified, it's become quite toxic. It's become hardened, almost like a growth in some sort of way, like a hardened growth. It rigidifies in us. You see it in so many people's bodies and the ways that they carry themselves around. They're not loose, like, in a way, a wisdom culture, because there's no extra baggage being carried. Not necessarily, but a lot, mostly. It's the sort of rigidity that happens as we age in these avoidance cultures. That's what they are, really, avoidance. Get it. Get to retirement and then you'll be free. Work hard for your living, and then you'll feather your own nest and you'll build up all this money, and then you'll be safe, and then you can enjoy a fantastic retirement that might work for some people, but for many, and I've met quite a few, that reached retirement. Meanwhile, they've lost themselves in the mechanism, in the momentum of work, and they reach retirement. They're sick, they're rigid, and they just don't know what to do with themselves. Not every human being can just go out onto the golf course and lose themselves in endless rounds of golf, kind of thing. So the meaning of the life is kind of quite easily lost. It's not a wisdom culture. It's a doing culture. It's almost a functional, go get it culture. And that starves people of this inner journey. So we have to find it for ourselves. That's what I'm saying. We have to be the ones to recognize that. If this culture hasn't got the capacity to reflect to me who I am, and it never did have, and now I'm on this unfathomable, weird spiritual journey where there's actually a frustration in seeking outside, well, then maybe life's intelligence is pointing me to be the wisdom culture, me to be the holder of the wisdom culture. Simply by turning around and saying, okay, I face myself, because only by facing ourselves can we know ourselves. You don't have to achieve anything. There's no destination here. It's not a destination place. There's no Shangri-La. There's no enlightened place. There's only the ever unfolding veil upon veil that's removed, that's resolved as we deepen into a deeper self-knowing. That's self-actualizing without any imagination. That's just the unfolding path of wisdom within us. So you see how profoundly different that is. Because we can't wait for culture. You can't wait for culture to change. It might never change. I'm hoping. I think that and there's an evolutionary momentum taking place. Where we are moving out of a more primitive, primal yuga, paradigm, endless, long paradigm, into something that's more evolved in so many ways. But this could be 100, 1,000, 2,000 years down the road, and we're talking about now. And so there's nothing to wait for anymore. The dream is over. This is it. There's nothing to wait for. The dream is over. The wisdom culture begins and ends in you with the capacity to do what you haven't been trained to do, which is to look at yourself, go inside yourself, unravel the veils, remove the patterns, see them in the clear light, and come into a deeper self-actualizing that says, friend, know thyself. Friend, love thyself. Friend, be thy true self. And that's it. That's the way. It's the only way we can do it. To stop waiting. Stop waiting for other people to either show you the way or to somehow in many ways do it for you. You are the way. You are the way. Your life is the way. Life is the way. The unfolding of your life is the way. That's it. Bless you.